In 2022, Austin Theory was set to be the next big thing in WWE, but fast forward to just 3 years later, and he is practically a jobber, losing to Jey Uso in only 10 seconds. But the guy's still only 27 years old. There's still plenty of time for him to achieve his potential and to main event WrestleMania. So in today's video, I'm going to be giving 5 possible ways to save Austin Theory. Number 5 is the least likely to work, whereas number 1 is the highest potential in my personal opinion. In at number 5, Austin Theory has an NXT Championship run. Now, he needs a reset, and NXT is the perfect place to do that. Plus, the men's main event scene in NXT, let's face it, it is a little bit thin. They've got some great guys there, but not too many of them. So Austin Theory coming in, especially when Obafemi gets called up, and to become the next NXT champion, I do think would have a lot of potential. And he never really had an NXT main event run, and honestly, I do think that's always been part of the issue with him. He was always thrown in the deep end way too quickly on the main roster. In his first run, he was called up from NXT when he was a lower mid-carder, and in his second run, he was called up when he was a comedy act in the way. So for that reason, this is the most easy and I guess the most straightforward choice to pick. But there is a little bit of a risk, because we have seen so many guys go down to NXT and then be called back up to the main roster and be in the exact same position they were in before. We saw it with Baron Corbin, Dijak, Apollo Crews. They can do great stuff down in the developmental brand, but that doesn't necessarily translate back to the main roster. Now, admittedly, none of those guys I just mentioned actually won the NXT title once again, so maybe if he does win it, it could work. But again, I guess Finn Balor, it didn't work either, so I'm not entirely sure about this option, but at least it would show to fans that Austin Theory can be a main event star, plus Theory, I do believe, would learn a lot in that role. In at number 4, Austin Theory joins The Rock and John Cena. Now, I know this would be a huge push for Theory, right? But at the end of the day, both The Rock and John Cena were both responsible for really killing Austin Theory's momentum in 2023. So for them to lift him back up and to put him back into the main event scene, well, it would be brilliant and would make a lot of sense. But I've already mentioned being chucked in at the deep end. I mean, this is like not knowing how to swim and being pushed into the deepest pool ever. It is so high risk, as you are literally being added to arguably one of the most important storylines in the history of this business, right? And if it goes well for you, well, you are a made man. But if it goes badly, not only could it be a career ender, but it would also hurt one of the biggest stories in wrestling history. So for that reason, I'm not entirely sure if it's worth risking it. I'm not sure, because yes, it could make Theory, but if it's putting that storyline at risk, it probably isn't worth it, is it? I mean, it is quite crazy to say that despite the fact he defeated John Cena at a WrestleMania, it really was John Cena who was, I think, the most responsible for really hurting his momentum, because he murdered the man on the mic. It was absolutely brutal. There's no other way to say it. And I mean, getting hit with a rock bottom, I mean, it's happened to so many people, right? So I don't think we can put too much blame on The Rock here, but that undoubtedly didn't help him either. But I don't know, it's a very risky one. But before we go any further, if you guys could like and subscribe, that would be massively appreciated. Thank you. In at number 3, his losing streak continues before he wins King of the Ring. Now, this is yet another really risky option, right? But the fact is, people have absolutely hated the fact Jay squashed him this week. That video has more dislikes than likes on YouTube. Fans are clearly getting behind Theory and saying, hey, this guy deserves better. So what if we continue this and continue getting fans to get behind him by continuously having him lose? Now, not being squashed, right? That cannot happen every week. But every week he takes a loss, but every week he looks slightly better in the ring and fans get more and more behind him. They can see he can go in the ring, but he still comes up short every single week before he manages to sneak his way into a King of the Ring tournament with his first win in months qualifying for it. It can be some roll-up, some little bit of luck, just a little something to go his way for the first time, and that little bit of luck is all he needs. Because from there, he wins every round of the King of the Ring tournament. Maybe at first he wins by a couple of roll-ups, then he starts to win by his finisher, and just he looks better every single match. And then he gets to the final, puts on an absolute classic, and wins completely cleanly and looks great in the process. And we have seen stuff like this done before in WWE, right? This isn't something unheard of. It is kind of a traditional way to build a babyface. Make fans feel sorry for them, and then start to build him up following it. I mean, hell, it kind of happened with Daniel Bryan. People forget he lost in like 5 seconds at WrestleMania against Sheamus. But again, it is risky, right? Because it does risk, like I said in the last one, too much too soon. If he wins King of the Ring, it means there's a World Championship opportunity at SummerSlam, right? Now, if you draft him to Raw, I guess the World title isn't as big as the WWE Championship, so perhaps that is the move to do. But even still, it is being put in a big position. Now, I would argue when he's been on the main roster for this long, if he isn't ready now to be able to take an opportunity like that, well, that probably isn't a good sign. So I would say this is probably worth the risk. But I do think there's a couple of other options which have a higher ceiling for him. Because in at number 2, Stone Cold Steve Austin takes Austin Theory under his wing for a couple of months. And hear me out on this one, guys. My idea is that Stone Cold returns not quite as a manager figure, but as a coach figure. A coach who's really hard on Austin Theory and rebuilds him. He says, hey, you're not the guy I saw at WrestleMania 38, the young star with tons of potential. Right now, you are a jobber. You lost all your potential. You had the potential to be a main event star, and you're way, way further from it now than you were back then. And then week by week, Stone Cold coaches him, rebuilds him back up. There's a few losses, there's a few little bits of hills, rocky mountains over the way, but they still managed to get there. And Stone Cold hasn't really done something like this before. So him really advocating for Austin Theory for a few months, it would make Austin Theory feel like a huge deal. And honestly, this is by far the least risky one, because you don't have to throw him in the main event scene right away. He can be in the mid-card scene. But just having Stone Cold alongside him, coaching him, it would make him feel so important and have so many eyes on him. Now, the question kind of is, would Stone Cold do it, right? Now, we've all heard, the rumors that he's happy in retirement. He doesn't really want to do a lot of these appearances for WWE, and when he does, he charges a very high rate. But I think maybe he would for Austin Theory. And if not, I guess you could maybe do Biker Undertaker, but I think Stone Cold makes 10 times more sense. This would be slow, steady, and the least risky in my opinion, and I actually think this would probably be the most reliable way of doing it too. But if I'm being completely honest, in at number 1, and what I believe is the best way, would be having Austin Theory following the footsteps of Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes and leaving WWE. He is only 27 years old, and it's easy to forget how literally Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre were both in pretty much the exact same situation as he was in at his age. Cody Rhodes was Stardust, let's face it, a glorified jobber. Whereas Drew McIntyre, there was nothing glorified about it. He was in a 3-man band, and he was a complete and utter clown. He was actually arguably in a worse position than Austin Theory was. And look at them both now. They are both main eventers. Cody Rhodes is the face of the company. Main evented 2 WrestleManias in a row. This will be his 3rd. So Austin Theory leaving the company and rebuilding himself outside of it on the independent scene, not AEW, right? Because if he goes to AEW, he's going to be lost in the shuffle in probably a worse position than he's in WWE. But to become the face of the independent scene, similar to the role Matt Cardona's in, right? Traveling all over America, all over the globe even, right? Putting on bangers, getting people to talk about him, and probably not doing it for that much, right? So financially, it's a risky move for him. But the sky's the limit, and he can really control his own narrative a little bit. Plus, he owns the Austin Theory name, which is a huge bonus. He can literally use that name, and not many people can say that. But there is one massive negative or risk with this, and that is if it doesn't work, it will literally kill his career. But sometimes you need to have your back against the wall a little bit, right? And all the risk is on Theory. It's on nobody else in this situation. Whereas with a lot of the other riskier options, WWE are taking a lot of the risk. In this one, the risk is purely on Theory, and he completely controls his own narrative. It's completely up to him. And I do think, honestly, that is how diamonds are made. But which option do you guys think will work the most? Let me know your favorite one in the comments down below. Or if you have any of your own options, let me know in the comments down below as well. I will be reading and replying to each one as always. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.